Saturday's round one game between Penn State and SMU was really no contest. From the opening kickoff to the final whistle, Penn State kicked their ass. And SMU's quarterback, Kevin Jennings, had a whole lot to do with the final score. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. The Nittney Lions are way too much for the Mustangs.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, so the final score Saturday was Penn State 38, SMU 10. This win sends the Nittney Lions into round two and the Fiesta Bowl matchup against Boise State. That should be a really interesting game with Boise's running back, Ashton, Jeanty, who finished number 2 in the Heisman Trophy voting, going up against Penn State's defense, which looks pretty salty, particularly up front with the defensive line. Okay, and I'm going to preface this show with this. I was asked a lot in my coaching career what gave me the most problems, what gave me the most trouble, what I didn't like to see defensively. And that was easy for me. And I always told them the same thing. I said, if your defensive line is better than my offensive line, then I'm going to have problems in that game. And Penn State's defensive line was faster, stronger, tougher, more physical than SMU's offensive line. Plus, you had some situations where you either had some suspect pass protection schemes by SMU or you just had some mental busts by their offensive linemen. Either way, Penn State's D-line kicked SMU's ass all day long, and as a result, Kevin Jennings had a long day. Okay, so as always, let's start with the quarterbacks and let's lead it off with Penn State's Drew Allar. You know, I did an analysis on Allar before the season started, and it was based on what I saw from him in last year's game film. And my analysis at the end of the day with him was kind of lukewarm. I didn't think that Penn State's offensive scheme did him any favors last year. You know, I thought it was pretty vanilla. I also thought that their offensive line hurt him in a lot of games with pass protection breakdowns. As far as my take goes with Drew Allar last year, I said that I thought that his feet were the biggest concern for me. You know, a lot of people rave about his athletic ability and his ability to hurt people with his legs, but in regards to the passing game and with him and, you know, with me, it's always about the feet. It starts and ends with the quarterback's feet. I really felt like last year watching him that he played with heavy feet. All right. And the heavy feet got him in trouble with his base. A lot of times his platform was jacked up because his feet were messed up and a little bit slow. And that caused him to have accuracy issues. He would throw the ball down low on a lot of his misses last year. And so moving to this season, this is only the second game that I've watched him play this year. The first being the earlier contest this year out in LA against the USC Trojans. And in that game, you know, he did some really good things. And because of the flow of that game, Penn State's offensive coordinator put a lot on Drew Allar's shoulders, put the ball in his hands and let him win it with his arm when it was all said and done. But still, I think his feet get him in trouble. Okay, so here we are in this game versus SMU, and I think that because of the flow of the game and because of what they needed him to do, he was just there. Okay, he was just an average quarterback today, nothing special. You know, and as far as Penn State's offense goes, until SMU stopped playing defensively, which is right at the end of the third quarter and all the way through the fourth, they just stopped playing on defense, effort, everything. Until that time, Penn State's offense was nothing to write home about. 2 touchdowns on picks, and they had a couple of touchdown drives on short fields. And although new Penn State offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki, I believe that's how he says his name, Kotelnicki has opened up Penn State's offense somewhat from last year. in this game, Drew Allar was still just a game manager. Okay, now let's talk about SMU's Kevin Jennings. You know, in their ACC title game against Clemson, I said the following. Jennings looked like he was out of control most of the game. I'm talking about by the time he dropped, set up in the pocket, and then whether he needed to or not, it was always like he was in a frantic pace and mode back there in the pocket, rolling out of the pocket, climbing the pocket, doing pirouettes, waving the ball around with one hand. And I said at the time against Clemson that he looked like he was out of control. I also said that in the second half, and particularly the fourth quarter, when SMU found themselves down by 17, switch flipped with him and he started making plays. Okay. And I also said that in that game, with the pace and the tempo that they were running on offense and things were going a little crazy out there on the field, that they had close-up shots of Jennings' face, and he always looked like he was in control. The look in his eyes, the look on his face, just he looked like he had things under control. But I also said this, his mechanics are sketchy. All right. And I'll talk more about that as we go. But in this game against Penn State, his mechanics were more of the same. They are really, really poor, and they get him in trouble with a lot of things that he does. Okay. And in this game, you know, a quarterback couldn't have a worse start than what Jennings had. So in the first drive, they are knocking on the door. They're in the red zone. It's 4th and 1. Lashley, the head coach, nixes the field goal. They're going for it. And Kevin Jennings made a poor decision on the roll to the right where he could have run it for an easy first down and possibly scored. He decided to throw the ball incomplete. Penn State took over. That was a missed opportunity to score for the Mustangs. And they did that on a couple of other occasions in this game. And then he threw an amazing 2 pick sixes in a row, which put SMU in a 14-0 hole in the first quarter. Okay, and then that second pick was almost a carbon copy of the really bad interception he threw against Clemson in the ACC title game. Drops back, gets flushed to the right. All right. He's rolling to the right. He's got pressure coming at him, and he throws the ball up with nothing on it, and it's picked. In both of those situations, Jennings needs to be a hell of a lot smarter and either throw the ball away and live to fight another day, or put it under your arm and get what you can get and get down and protect yourself. But you can't throw it off balance, off platform, and get nothing on it and sort of just throw it up there and wish for something good to happen. And we're talking about the picks being the same with pressure and all. You go back to the first pick six he threw, and he was pressured on that one. All right. We had a botched pass pro assignment by SMU's offensive line. You've got a guy coming straight up the gut who's basically unblocked, and Jennings now off his back foot throws it fading away and just lobs the ball up. And again, that's a bad situation for any quarterback, and the ball's picked off and run for a touchdown. So that's 3 picks in 2 games where he was pressured and made really poor decisions. And, you know, that's not a great skill to have for a quarterback at any level. Okay, so this is what happens when you have the wrong protection scheme on. And this resulted in the first pick of the game, the pick 6 that Jennings threw. And so SMU was lined up in this trips right formation, and Penn State was essentially lined up in what I call a 32 double ghost. All right. This guy's standing up. That guy's standing up. The other 3 D linemen are down. Now, this is the way that SMU should have blocked this. There's 2 different ways. This is the first way they could have done this. Okay, this is bob and sort. We're going to bob to the left, and we're going to sort to the right. Bob means big on big. So you've got the left tackle manned up on the guy on him in man pass protection, and the sort is zoning. All right, and we've got a 4-man sort going to the right, and you're blocking gaps here. So your left guard has got A gap to the right. The center has got the other A gap to the right. The right guard has B gap to the right, and the tackle has C gap to the right. And you've got all of these gaps protected, and you've got this thing blocked up. Okay? The other way that you can do this is this way. You can double sort it. Okay? And what this is you're sorting right, you're sorting left with two-man sorts on both sides. Your center's got the nose guard one-on-one, and you put your running back on the Mike backer. All right? Everything gets blocked up fine. This is what SMU does. They do a three-man sort to the right, so the center initially starts right, and the guard, for some reason, and this has got to be where the brain jam is. I'm not sure. The guard sorts the other way, so this should be a four-man sort, but the guard's looking the other way. The tackle's blocking the guy on him. Okay? What Penn State does, because the center's fanning right and this guard fans left, nobody's blocking the nose guard when he comes into A gap to the left. And what happens is both the guard and the center go, oh shit, as they're kicking back into pass pro, and this guy comes unblocked. He gets right in Jennings' face, causing him to throw the ball off his back foot, and it's picked for a pick six. So in the Clemson game where I said that he always looked like he was under total control, after he threw that second pick six, they had again close-ups of him on the sideline. And while he didn't look like he was in the tank, so he wasn't pulling a Carson Beck, he did have a look and an aura of a guy that was shell-shocked, right? A shell-shocked. And he went back on the field and proceeded to miss a couple of easy throws with brutal misses. So it was in his head at that point in time. You know, as a quarterback, and I've talked about this before, as a quarterback, you got to be just like a golfer. You got to have a poor memory in that, good or bad, whatever just happened, you got to forget about it and focus on the next play. If you let interceptions, mistakes, bad throws, bad decisions, whatever, affect you mentally to where it affects you on the next play, the next series, that's not good. All right. Quarterbacks just need to flush it and move on and play the next play. Okay. And then in the first half, Jennings threw his third pick of the day. He was trying to throw a slant route to his left against an unblocked C-gap blitzer. And basically what you're looking at and what you're asking the quarterback to do in that situation is to be able to throw a ball through the hands of an unblocked guy coming off the edge who's going to have his hands up in the air. You've got to be able to put it through those arms or somehow throw it under his armpit. You know, you've seen Mahomes do that. You've seen Cam Ward do that for Miami. The bottom line is this. That is really a tough ask for a quarterback, right? And the ball got deflected, popped up in the air, and picked. Was a bad situation for SMU, and it turned out to be the third pick of the day for Kevin Jennings. And that interception happened on a drive that they started on Penn State's 20-yard line. Okay, 20-yard line going in. And again, missed opportunities. Throw a pick, their offense is on the sideline, their defense is back out on the field. Okay, so as I said in the Clemson game, it's the same deal here. You know, Jennings has got poor mechanics. He throws a ton of footballs and a ton of passes off his back foot where he's got his weight distribution going back and it's off of his back foot. And when you do that, you can't get a lot on your throws, and that also affects accuracy. All right. And then the other thing that he does is he will wind up when he throws. So he's got the ball here, and that's when he does carry it with good ball carriage, tip of the ball, top of the numbers. When he does have it here, when it's his time to cut loose with the throw, instead of pushing it up and back, he drops it down to the waist and has to wind it all the way back up again to get it out of his hand. Okay, the longer it's in the QB's hand, the longer it takes to get out of his hand. Timing's jacked up a lot of times when that happens. Those are coachable things that I would think that Jennings would have had out of his system by now playing for SMU. I don't know what goes on there with the quarterback coaching. I don't know what is drilled with him in practice, but you know, those things that he does physically with his mechanics throwing the football gets him in trouble. And then the last thing is ball security. And this one drives me crazy. So against Clemson, he did the same thing today where he's rolling and moving out of the pocket and he's got people around him swiping at him, swiping at the ball. He'll carry it in one hand, his throwing hand, and he'll carry it down by the top of his knee. There was an example today in the third quarter. They had a defensive lineman that was in his face, and Jennings with his left hand tried to stiff arm the guy, right, to keep him off of him. He was backpedaling away from the guy at the same time. He had the ball in his throwing hand, which is his right hand, and he had it waving down by the top of his knee. And I'm going, holy cow. You know, not only is that a situation where you can drop the football on a 20-degree day, but you got defensive linemen, you got offensive linemen that accidentally, inadvertently hit the ball. And if you got it in one hand, waving it around like that, it's on the ground and it's a turnover. Again, that's coachable behavior. And so I think at the end of the day with head coach Brett Lashley and quarterback Kevin Jennings, it's this scenario for SMU. It's high risk, high reward, and hold your breath. With Jennings, you're either going to get wow plays or you're going to get oh no plays. Now listen, coming into this game, that type of style for them offensively has led to some really good numbers, right? And also 11 wins. So again, high risk, high reward, but you're also going to run into a lot of situations where it's like, oh shit, I can't watch this. Okay, now with Jennings, just a question out there for everybody. Now, I might be mistaken on this, but I'm pretty sure that the NCAA rule says that, number one, you have to have a brightly colored mouthpiece out there, right, attached to your helmet, face mask, so that the referee can see that you've got it in your mouth, right? Number two, you have to have that brightly colored mouthpiece in your mouth. So there were numerous snaps today where I'm looking at Jennings back there in the gun, and that mouthpiece, which is on a strap hanging off of his face mask, is just swaying in the breeze, right? No flags, no nothing. And so if anybody's got an answer out there, I'd love to hear it. Maybe there's a change in the rule that I'm not aware of. I mean, after all, they're now allowing players to wear bicycle shorts out there. So maybe they're saying, you know, mouthpieces are optional. Okay, so for the game, totally, Penn State's Drew Allar was 13 for 22. That's 59% completion. He threw for 127 yards, no touchdown passes, and no interceptions. Jennings for SMU was 20 for 36, which is 55%. For 195 yards. He threw a touchdown there at the end of the game on a really nice ball. But then he threw those 3 picks. 2 of them were run back for touchdowns. Okay. Now, some random thoughts on this game. What a huge difference for SMU in the following 2 scenarios. First of all, the average temperature for their games this year was 72 degrees. Now here they come bebopping into Beaver Stadium in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, and the temperature today was in the 20s with pretty good wind gusts, which made the wind chill factor really freaking cold. All right. The second difference for SMU is the 2 stadiums that both teams play in. So SMU back in Dallas, Texas, their stadium holds 32,000 people. Beaver Stadium, where they played today, holds 106,500. That's a pretty big stage for the Mustangs. And again, this stuff drives me crazy with pass protection, and it's hard to tell whether it's scheme stuff or it's mental bust by the offensive lineman. But there were a number of scenarios in this game where allowed defenders, Penn State guys, to come unblocked when they could have got them blocked up. And I'm going to chalk up this sack that they gave up on this one pass protection scheme. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about there. And then I'm also going to talk about the dreaded full slide, the 5-man offensive slide with pass protection. Okay, this was a sack, Penn State sack in the second quarter. They're up 21-0. And this is under the heading of why would you pass protect like this? Now, there's one form of pass protection that I absolutely hate. And that's when you full slide your offensive line. All right. And the reason why I hate it is if you got a back in the backfield and you full slide your line, you're asking your running back now to pass block a defensive lineman. And that's just stupid. Okay. SMU's in no backs here, right? 5 wideouts, but they're going to full slide this front, which is what they do, to the left. And this is what happens. So what's the problem there? Okay, now I need to write this up here. Never get sacked versus a 5-man rush. If you got 5 dudes pass blocking and they're rushing 5, you got to get 5 hats on 5 guys. Okay, so you can see what happens here. They full slide it to the left. This dude right here is unblocked. He gets in Jennings' face right away, causes problems, sack. All right? This is how they should have blocked it. With that Mike backer overloaded the way he is, all the quarterback has to do is make a sort right call, and they're going to bob and sort this, bob it to the left. Again, that's big on big, and then gap it or sort it to the right. Right tackle's got C gap, right guard's got B gap, center's got A gap, and we got everybody blocked up, and now Jennings can do his thing, throwing the ball. Again, it was things like this in this game, and it wasn't just full sliding, but it was double teaming interior defensive linemen and letting a ghost guy come free off the edge, again, with a 5-man rush. And the dude's in Jennings' face right away. It's doing stuff like that or brain jamming up front with assignments by the offensive lineman or just plain having bad pass protection schemes. Either way, when you're going against a defense with a defensive line as salty and good as Penn State, you can't give them that much of an advantage by doing goofy shit with your pass protection. Okay, as I said earlier that Penn State's offensive coordinator opened up Penn State's offense this year way more than what it was last year. But I think he got a little too cute on one of the plays where he had his tight end, Tyler Warren, in the backfield, in the shotgun as the quarterback, right? He had a Lard to his right as a running back, and then he had their regular running back to his left. And what they did is they ran an RPO with Warren where he came downhill to his left on like a quarterback run with the option of throwing a shoot route to the running back, right? Not exactly the RPO that I would run. And the problem with this play was Warren decided to throw the ball, and the running back was about 3 yards in front of him when he threw a Nolan Ryan fastball that the guy had no chance to catch. I mean, that sucker was humming. Now, the question that I have is, I wonder how many practice reps that took during the week to run it just one time in the game and to run it as, I don't want to say botched up, but as funny as that looked when it actually happened. You know, I just think that that's a waste of practice time. Just my opinion. Okay, I talked about this before in other shows. I don't get this philosophy of fair catching on kickoff returns to start the ball on the 25-yard line. Talked about it before. I'm not going to get into that here, but tell me why Penn State's guy would catch the ball run about 3 or 4 steps, and then just sit down on his butt on the 8-yard line. What's going on there? Is that kind of a mouthpiece deal? Am I missing something here? If somebody can help me out in the comments, that would be great. Okay, it's announcers time. You know, most of these games that I analyze and give you my takes on, I usually have something to say about the announcers. A lot of these guys really get under my skin with some of the stupid shit that they say. And play-by-play guys, you know, those guys are hit or miss. 50% of them are really good. The other 50% aren't. But it's the color commentators, the other guys that are in the booth. Those are the guys that can make or break a telecast, because you got some guys in the booth doing the color commentating, the analysts that are really sharp. And then you got some other guys, not so much. Okay, so here's what happened in this game. Penn State on a drive didn't kick a field goal. All right, they went for it on 4th down. They didn't pick up the 1st down. And Mark Jones, the world famous Mark Jones, play-by-play guy, said this. I knew this was coming too. Analytics say kick it, to which color commentator Roddy Jones, who I thought did a pretty damn good job today, immediately came back with this. And this is sort of paraphrasing, but you get the idea. Jones said, "What analytics doesn't say is that it's 20 degrees with a gusting wind," to which there were some crickets, and then Jones with, "Oh." And so I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Screw analytics. Has no business being in sports at all. Okay, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, share this out. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Everybody out there have a great Christmas and be safe. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this,